Reddit stories from r/askreddit. What's the dumbest thing someone has told you? We were in a summer camp, and when I opened a flashlight during a storm, it was also night, he started yelling at me to shut it off because, apparently, light attracts lightning. Shine it on him and tell him you are going to zap the stupid away. I actually did shine it on him, but he run and locked himself in the restroom. I don't have to wear a condom because I smoke weed and it makes me sterile. He was a 15-year-old kid that had a job cleaning houseboats. I had a grown-ass woman I worked with tell me this. She would have unprotected sex with her boyfriend and hadn't gotten pregnant. She thought that it was because she smokes so much weed. She was pretty dumb all around, but this one really blew me away. Granted, I was working as a server at a sushi restaurant. And as far as I know she still isn't pregnant, so, maybe she was onto something? Can't believe someone else has also heard this nonsense. A blowjob doesn't count as cheating because, and I quote, it doesn't include the genitals. What the hell does that person think a penis is? A third leg probably. I don't want to swim in the ocean because I might get pregnant by a sperm whale. The person who said this? F18. What the actual fuck? This girl thought she was pregnant and I asked her why. She held out a stick of chapstick as if that explained anything. I asked how that explained anything and she pointed to the ingredients list, and specifically towards something like sperm whale fat. She thought she got pregnant by applying sperm whale products to her lips LMAO. Edit, her face lips, not her labia. I sat next to a girl in bio who got 40% on our first test. She seemed quite pleased and said that now she only needed to get 40% again to have an average of 80%. If it was a maths test, her 40% score would totally check out. You mean 4%, right? Pumpkins aren't natural, because they last too long. I then explained the concept of skin and how long jack-o'-lanterns last compared to an unbroken pumpkin, and you should have seen the look on her face. Wait until they find out most of the apples and potatoes they eat in winter are stored in cellars for months before they are sold at the store. Face with tears of joy. Hell, a properly stored potato can last for a year under the right conditions. Lol. Watching a sunset on the ocean one day when a late teens person asked me why the ocean doesn't put the sun's fire out. It does. That's why night exists, duh. Also, fog is just the steam from dunking the sun in the ocean. A girl from Florida once told me, because Australia is upside down, left is right and right is left. I am Australian and told her she was right, and not many people know that. I also had a girl from Florida inform me that Aussie accents are so cute. When I, desperately trying to sleep with her, informed her that I thought her accent was also cute, I was hit with this classic. What? Americans don't have accents. A girl in my geology class once said that the oceans were so polluted because the dirty animals wash themselves in it. That was in 8th grade. It gets some logic, though. Though in my country it was more jokes level for kids. Why sea water is salty? Because fishes pee in it, or people, depending on conversation context. Also it was why herring is salty, because swim in salty water, or why sea water is salty, because herring swims in it. In our country herring is quite popular fish, and some years ago you could get it only canned with salty water for conservation. Someone once told me they saved the internet on a floppy disk. They actually saved their dial-up connection shortcut, but they truly were convinced that it contained the whole internet. Have a similar story. I studied fashion design. But we also were able to take a basic programming, coding class just for fun. This school only taught fashion in general. At the beginning our teacher asked, did any one of you ever programmed or coded something? And one girl raised her hand. Yes. I programmed something. And everyone was shocked because she wasn't known for being the smartest. I programmed the internet on my computer. Teacher, you mean you installed your internet connection? No, I programmed Firefox. Someone said, I doubt you programmed the internet, and she got furious. It's the same girl that told me that after washing her hands are always so wet. That direction can't be north because it's diagonal and north has to be in a straight line. What? I knew a girl who thought north was up. Like, in the sky. I remember a guy in 4th grade had that same misconception. The whole class was speechless, but the teacher didn't skip a beat. He said, but if you go north, you reach the North Pole. The North Pole isn't up in the sky. That kid's face twisted like his soul was trying to leave his body. That their teacher told them they had a high IP. I know he meant IQ, but seriously. You should ping him, just to be sure. You might not get a response for several seconds. Wait, so you are trying to tell me that our sun is a star? What are all those other things? I proceed to show her an observable universe's size comparison video. Humans can't look that far, I can't even see the moon sometimes. This is my friend F18. Edit, whoa, I never thought this would blow up. But just saying, my friend is not stupid. She just doesn't know shit about space, so I found this really funny. Haha, have a great life everyone. Imagine if it followed her logic. The entire astronomy career path is looking up at the stars and squinting very hard. A satellite is fired into space and everyone from NASA is out in the garden and squinting at the sky. Complete silence. And a faint boom in the sky, as it crashes into another one. Because someone forgot to control the orbit of the satellite. But they couldn't. They were squinting at the sky in the garden. That windshield wipers wear out faster in the middle, because that's the part you look through the most often, as if your sight is an energy beam that degrades the rubber or something. Was this person Cyclops? My ex-wife at the time came home late, said she had a flat tire and that her and her girlfriend were able to put the spare on. I taught her that, then she said there was something she didn't understand. She said she saw a screw in the tire and wanted to know that if the screw was in the top of the tire, why was the bottom flat? Woman I work with has a similar experience. Got a flat on the way home, pulled over and looked at it and saw that it was only flat on the bottom, so I kept driving on it. How does she even have a job? I think the law that requires you to wear a seatbelt is so stupid. My body, my choice. Me, well, what about your 5-year-old son? You wouldn't want to hurt him if he was riding with you, right? Shrugs, when it's your time to go, it's your time to go. Me, really? That's how you feel about that? I mean, why even look before crossing the street, if when it's your time to go, it's your time to go? Actually, I usually don't look when I cross the street. Edit, she is under 30, but already has terrible knees. Why? Get ready, she was hit by a car in her teens while she was crossing the street. This is a lot more common than you think. I had an Uber passenger a couple of days ago tell me we're picking up her kid. Me, ma'am, how old is the child? Lady 3 years old. Me, okay, well you'll need a car seat. It's state law. Lady, no, it's okay, she's only 3. My stepsister told me we should see the PG-13 movie because PG meant pretty good. I wish I were joking. Edit, she wasn't a little kid when she said this. She was 19. Movie was Breaking Dawn PT2. Take that however you want lol. Then NC-17 means it's for nice children. XXX means action, lots of action. Vin said so. That the post office doesn't ship mail to the Netherlands because you can't send physical mail to hell. Just wanted to mail a postcard to my family in Eindhoven. Was this the postal worker telling you this? I had one-time freak out over me shipping a package to Georgia. They said they'd never heard of that country before. I once spent a fair amount of time convincing a post office worker that Puerto Rico is in fact part of the US and that I do actually know my own relative's address. Stop doing that, you're not Asian to someone who is South Asian. I've had arguments with people that any country that isn't Japan, China, Korea, or Vietnam isn't considered Asian. Refers to Indian as Asian, that's not Asian. Yes it is, India is part of Asia. I guess, but it's not Asian. Worked with a guy several years ago who didn't know he was Asian. Turned to me one day with a look of shock and asked, "Did you know I'm Asian?" I said yes while laughing because I thought he was joking. He was not joking. His girlfriend had told him the night before, and he didn't believe her, so he was asking for a second opinion. We had a discussion about how he did learn this in school, but he always believed the teachers couldn't be including the country his parents came from because it wasn't smack in the middle of all the other Asian countries. We'll call that an interesting day at work. Head-hurting kind of interesting. You're twins? No you're not. You can't be twins if you don't look alike. Single quote. Ma'am, we're fraternal. My brother and I are both adopted and couldn't look more different if we tried. I've had the following conversation more than once with people we've just met. Asterisk them asterisk, wait, you two are brothers? You look nothing alike. Asterisk me asterisk, yeah, that's because we're both adopted. Asterisk them asterisk, oh, were you brothers before you were adopted? Asterisk me asterisk, no. That's why we don't look alike. When people find out my brother and sister are twins, they ask if they're identical. No, sorry, not how that works. A teacher told me and the rest of my class the Earth was flat something like 25 years ago when I was in high school. I had never heard of a flat earther at that time, and I remember thinking how much of an idiot the person was and questioning with my classmates how that person was supposed to teach us anything. Our high school chemistry teacher told us the speed of light and the speed of sound were the same. At least she wasn't our physics teacher, I guess. OMG, who keeps hiring these teachers? That South Pole is hot because it's south. Edit, to all of you saying that this is a common misconception with kids, true, but the person that said this was 18 at the time. A girl asked that in my geography class, I was trying to not laugh when I looked at my friend and laughed really hard. I felt bad for her, but I just couldn't help it, the situation was just so funny. An ex tried telling me that his therapist assured him that it was my sole responsibility to remain in a relationship with him to keep his sanity in check. I obviously disagreed. I am not your personal prescription. I was breaking it off with a real nutter, and he actually called me from his therapist to have her tell me I needed to stay with him that night or he might kill himself. I asked to be taken off speakerphone and speak with her directly. I explained that we had only been dating about 3 weeks and this was just another ploy to get me to stick around, and that I didn't have time to stay with a psycho all night, you know, full-time job and all. She was very polite and asked 3 more times in different ways. The unprofessional guilt from this woman was unbelievable. I ended up tucking him in bed that night as he cried and I left. Didn't ever talk to him again. Saw him on Tinder about 5 years later. I guess he didn't kill himself. Edit, I did try to get her name and report her, but the necessity to leave the man-child was greater. If you swallow your chewing gum, your lungs will stick together. My parents said it'd seal my asshole shut and I wouldn't be able to shit. Okay, this one's actually plausible if you're a 6-year-old. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more Reddit stories like this.